Hello Year 6 and welcome to Tuesday the 21st of April's maths lesson. So we're going to start straight away looking at the answers to the challenge questions that Mr. Harris set you yesterday. So if you have a look here, these are the answers to questions 1, 2 and 3. Let's have a look at how you go about working out those answers. So I'm hoping that you identified yesterday that these questions are based on finding fractions of an amount. So if we look at question 1, we have 1/10 of £5 or 3/5 of 80p. And we have to work out what would you prefer, which one would you prefer to have. So if we have a look here, we've got 1/10 of £5. Now, I'm hoping that you'll remember from our maths lessons that when we're finding a fraction of an amount, we take the amount here, £5, and we do 5 divided by 10. We do the amount divided by the denominator, and then we times by the numerator. Now, £5 divided by 10 is a little tricky to do. So we need to think to ourselves, what can I convert £5 to, which will make that calculation easier for me to do? Well, I know that I can convert pounds to pence. £5 is equivalent to 500 pence. So now my new calculation, instead I can do 500, and you'll have to forgive me because I'm not great trying to use the pen using my mouse. 500 divided by 10. What's that? Well, that's 50. And then I have to multiply my answer by the numerator, times by 1. Now we know when we times by 1, we're just going to get the same. So this gives me 50p. So here I have 1/10 of £5 will give me 50p. So let's have a go. Let's repeat that process for the 3/5 of 80p. So what's my first step? Well, I know that I take my amount and I divide by the denominator. So 80 divided by 5, which you should know is 16. And then 16 multiplied by the numerator. And you could do this in your head mentally using partitioning. So I would think to myself, 10 times 3, well, that's 30. 6 times 3, well, I know that's 18. 30 add 18 is 48. So now I know that 3/5 of 80p gives me 48p. So in that case, I would have preferred the 1/10 of the £5. That was a quick refresher on how we find fractions of amounts. Now on to the main lesson. Today we are going to be looking at improper fractions and mixed number fractions. Now this is something that we've covered already, so it's just a revision session, a recap of what we've done in class previously. So if we have a look here, improper fractions. An improper fraction has a numerator, that's the number on top, which is bigger than the denominator, which is the number on the bottom. And we can refer to them as a top-heavy fraction. I've got quite a nice visual here to represent that. So you can see here that I have 7 quarters. I have the 7 slices of the pizza, which has been cut up into quarters. And you can see here we've got some more examples of improper fractions. So that's where the numerator is heavier than the denominator. That's what an improper fraction is. We also have mixed numbers, which can also be referred to as mixed fractions. A mixed number has a whole and a fraction. So here we have the one whole pizza and 3/4 of another pizza, the 1 3/4. And then we have a few more examples here of mixed numbers. You can see the wholes and then you can see the fractions. Now, a really important skill which we've learnt to do is, well, how do we convert from improper to mixed and from mixed to improper? Let's have a look. How do we convert an improper fraction to a mixed number? We've got our number here, 7/4. Now, in my class, I always like to say, we'll get the easy step out of the way with first. What is the easy step? Well, the easy step is the denominator stays the same. So quarters, quarters. Now we need to work out what's our whole going to be. And to do that, we say to ourselves 7 divided by 4. An easier way, how I like to think of it, is how many 4s go into 7? Well, 4 goes into 7 one whole time. That is my whole. So I've done my denominator, I've got my whole. What's left is my numerator. How do I work that out? Well, my numerator is whatever is left to get me to 7. So 4 goes into 7 one whole time, and there's 3 left over. And that's simply how you do it. So step 1, denominator stays the same. Step 2, how many times can I get the denominator into my numerator? That becomes my whole there. And then the final step, step 3, what is the remainder? What is left to get me to my numerator? Now, you can go ahead and pause the video now and have a go at these 3 improper fractions here. Have a go at turning them to mixed numbers. Right, let's have a look at the first one together. So we've got here 15/4. So, easy step, denominator stays the same. Second step, how many times does my denominator go into my numerator? So I'm thinking of my 4 times table in my head. Well, I know that 4 times 3 is 12. So it goes in 3 whole times. And my final step is my remainder. What's left over? Well, 3 times 4 is 12. To get me to 15, I have to add another 3. And there we go. We have 3 3/4, which we would say is equivalent to 15/4. And let's have a reveal. Now, you should be really confident with that method. These are the other answers: 3 7/9, and 8 7/10. So now you know how to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers. Now let's have a look at how we convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. So here I have 1 whole and 3/4, just like the pizza example that we saw earlier. And again, this is what I like to call the easy step. The denominator stays the same. Step 2, you multiply the whole by the denominator. So step 2, we do 1 times 4, which is 4. And then step 3, you add the numerator. That's 7. I'll go over that once more. So step 1, denominator stays the same. Very simple. Step 2, you do the whole multiplied by the denominator, 1 times 4 is 4. And then step 3, you add the numerator. 4 add 3 is 7. And I'll write that step here just to help you. And if you want to go ahead now and pause the video again, and we've got a few more for you to have a go at here. Okay, let's have a look at the first few, how to do them together. So I've got 6 and 1/8, and I want to convert that to an improper fraction. Step 1, denominator stays the same. Step 2, you multiply the whole by the denominator. Six times 8, which is 48. And then step 3, you add the numerator. So 48 add 1 equals 49. So 6 and 1/8 is equivalent to 49/8. Let's have a look at one more together. We'll look at 22 and 1/2. Step 1, denominator stays the same. Step 2, multiply the whole by the denominator. 22 times 2 is 44. And then the final step, add the 1, is 45. And I'll go on and reveal the other answers so you can have a mark of the ones that you have done by yourself. Okay, now you should be really confident on how to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers and mixed numbers to improper fractions. The final skill that we're going to have a look at today is how do we compare mixed numbers. So I have 3 mixed numbers here, and I want to organise them from smallest to biggest. How am I going to do that? Well, you should remember from yesterday's lesson on comparing fractions that if I compare a fraction, I have to make all of the denominators the same. How do I do that? How do I make the denominators the same? Well, I have to find a common multiple. So I could write out the 2 times table, write out the 3 times table, write out the 6 times table till I found a common multiple. However, as I'm hoping most of you will have noticed by now, 6 is a multiple of 2. 6 is also a multiple of 3. So all I need to do is change my 2/3 and my 1/2, and I can leave my 5/6. So we can reveal up my 5/6 now. Let's get rid of that. There we go. And we just need to look at these two. So how do I do that? Well, let's write the whole, because the whole stays the same. And I already know that I want my new denominator. I'm turning my thirds into 6. So here we go. What do I do to 3 to get to 6? What do I multiply it by? I multiply it by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Whatever I do to the bottom number, I have to repeat that process to the top number. 2 times 2 is 4. So now I have 1 whole and 4/6, I have 1 whole and 5/6, and I've got my last fraction here. So I go ahead and I'm going to write my whole. And I know that my denominator is now going to be 6. So I say to myself, okay, 2, what do I do to 2 to get to 6? Well, I times it by 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 times 3 is 3. And now I have converted all of my mixed numbers to be sixths, which means I can now order them from the smallest to the biggest. Okay, children, so you should understand now how to convert improper fractions to mixed numbers to improper fractions. You should know how to compare mixed numbers, building on your skills from yesterday. If we have a look, these are your challenge questions, which we'll be going over in tomorrow's video. So I will have a read of them for you. Pizzas are eaten at a party. Each pizza is cut into 8 slices. 42 slices are eaten. How many whole pizzas are eaten at the party? This question here, at another party, 7.5 pizzas are eaten. How many slices are eaten? And then here we have a question which is asking you to find the value of A, B, and C. So that means what does it equal when A, B, and C is added together? In order to do that, you need to work out, well, what is the value of A, B, and C? So there's a little bit of algebra there for you to enjoy. Thank you for joining me on today's video, children. I hope that you found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another maths video. Thank you. Bye.